My name was William Bill Carter, and I died at 82 knowing I had executed the perfect revenge. For 3 years, I watched my own son destroy the life of my innocent grandson out of pure greed. They thought they had fooled me, that I was just a foolish old man from Texas, but I knew everything, and I left behind a surprise that would change their lives forever. I was born in 1942 on a small rural property outside Austin, Texas. My father, James Carter, was a simple man who raised cattle and grew corn on land that barely provided enough to support our family of 5. Since the age of 8, I would wake up before dawn to help with the animals, and it was in those dusty fields that I learned the value of honest work and perseverance. When I was 16, my father died of a heart attack while fixing a fence. My mother, Margaret, was left a widow with 3 children to raise and a farm buried in debt. Being the oldest, I took on the responsibilities. I dropped out of school and dedicated my life to saving our land. I worked 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. There was no time for dating, fun, or youthful dreams. By the time I was 22, I had paid off all our debts and even managed to expand the property. That's when I met Diane Mitchell, a school teacher from town who used to come to the farm to buy fresh eggs. Diane had wavy brown hair, jade green eyes, and a smile that lit up my gray world. We got married in 1965 in a simple ceremony at the local church. Diane brought joy and culture into my rustic life. She taught me to read more than just farming manuals, introduced me to classical music, and showed me that there was beauty in the world beyond hard labor. Together, we built not just a thriving farm, but a home filled with love and laughter. Our son Adam was born in 1968. From the earliest age, it was clear he hadn't inherited my passion for the land. While I dreamed of teaching him about raising cattle and agriculture, Adam preferred staying indoors, reading comic books, or playing with his electronic toys. "Dad, this is dirty and boring," he'd complain every time I asked him to help out in the stables. Diane tried to bridge the gap between us. "Bill, not everyone is born to be a farmer," she would say gently. "Adam has other talents." But I couldn't accept it. I had worked my entire life to build something I could pass down to my son, and he simply didn't care. At 18, Adam announced he was moving to Dallas to study business. "I want to live in the big city, Dad. I want to wear a suit and work in air-conditioned offices." His words hurt me deeply. Diane convinced me to support him financially, even though I was strongly against it. In Dallas, Adam met Helen Rodriguez, an ambitious young woman who worked as an executive secretary at a major company. Helen was beautiful, smart, and had grand plans for her life. When Adam brought her to visit the farm, I immediately saw her true intentions. She looked at our property the way an investor evaluates a profitable deal. "What an interesting place," Helen said on her first visit, clearly forcing a smile. "Must be worth a fortune with all this land." Her words felt like knives. She didn't ask about our story, how we built everything with our own hands, or the sacrifices we made. She only wanted to know its value. Adam and Helen got married in 1990 in a lavish ceremony in Dallas that cost more than I made in 2 years. All they came to visit when they needed money, for a new car, a fancier apartment, a trip abroad, always with elaborate excuses and promises that it would be just this once. Diane passed away in 1995, a victim of breast cancer. It was the darkest period of my life. Adam came to the funeral but left the next day, citing important commitments back in Dallas. I was left alone on a farm now worth over $10 million, but it felt empty without the love of my life. Then in 2004, my life found new meaning. Adam and Helen announced they were expecting a baby. Thomas, Tommy Carter, was born that December, a blonde-haired, bright blue-eyed boy who would change my fate forever. From the first time Tommy set foot on the farm at 2 years old, I knew I had found my true heir. He ran through the fields with pure joy, wasn't afraid of animals, and asked a million questions about everything. "Grandpa, why do cows go moo? Grandpa, can I ride the horse? Grandpa, when I grow up, can I live here with you?" Every visit from Tommy was a blessing. He loved helping with the animals, learning about the crops, and listening to my stories about how I built everything from the ground up. By 8, he rode horses with the confidence of a seasoned cowboy. By 10, he could spot signs of illness in the cattle. By 12, he proudly declared, "I want to be a farmer like Grandpa." But that closeness made Adam and Helen increasingly uncomfortable.
"Dad, you're filling Tommy's head with these outdated ideas," Adam would complain whenever he came to pick up his son after the weekends on the farm. "The future isn't in farming. Tommy needs to focus on his studies, on tech, on modern careers." Helen was even more blunt. "Bill, with all due respect, Tommy has the potential to be so much more than a simple farmer. He's smart. He's getting a quality education in Dallas. He can't waste that playing with cows." I tried to explain that working the land wasn't a waste, that there was honor and purpose in agriculture, that our farm was a multi-million-dollar business. But to them, I was just a stubborn old man stuck in the past. Things got worse when Tommy turned 15. During one of his summer visits, he confided in me his plans. "Grandpa, I want to move here after high school. I want to learn everything about running the farm, about agribusiness. I want to carry on our legacy." My heart swelled with pride and hope. Finally, someone in the Carter family valued what I had built. I began making plans to expand our operations, maybe venture into organic farming, diversify our investments. Tommy would be my partner, my successor, my pride. But when Adam and Helen found out about his plans, their reaction was explosive. "No way!" Helen shouted during a heated Christmas argument in 2019. "Tommy is going to college. He's going to study law or business. We're not letting him throw his life away in this backward place." Adam backed her up. "Dad, you don't understand the modern world. Farming is outdated. Tommy is 16. He doesn't know what he wants yet. You're manipulating an impressionable teenager." "Manipulating?" I snapped. "I'm offering him an opportunity. This farm is worth $15 million. It's a thriving business, not a joke." That's when I made my biggest mistake. In my anger, I revealed my intentions. "If you two can't see the value of what we have here, maybe Tommy really is the right one to inherit everything." The silence that followed was deafening. I saw in Adam and Helen's eyes a mix of rage, fear, and something darker. Pure greed. From that moment on, Tommy's visits became restricted. There were always excuses. He was busy with school, had extracurriculars, needed to focus on college prep. When he did come, Adam and Helen were tense, monitoring every conversation, every moment we spent together. In March of 2021, I received a phone call that changed everything. "Mr. Carter?" The voice on the other end was formal, professional. "This is Detective Morrison from the Dallas Police Department. I'm calling to inform you that your grandson, Thomas Carter, was arrested this afternoon." My world collapsed. "Arrested? Why? This must be some mistake." "Mr. Carter, your grandson is being charged with homicide. He allegedly killed a classmate during a fight in the parking lot of Westfield High School." The line went silent. Homicide? Tommy? The sweet, gentle boy who helped feed orphan calves. The young man who cried when any animal on the farm got sick. Impossible. I rushed to Dallas, driving like a madman down Texas highways. When I arrived at the police station, Adam and Helen were already there, whispering to an expensive-looking lawyer. "Dad," Adam came to greet me. "I'm glad you're here. It's a terrible situation." "Where's Tommy? I want to see him." "Helen, you can't see him right now. The lawyer says it's best to keep the family circle tight. Too many visits could hurt the case." "Family circle? He's my grandson." "And he's our son," Adam replied coldly. "We're making the decisions here." In the following days, I tried multiple times to visit Tommy in jail, but there were always roadblocks. The lawyer was busy, Tommy was unavailable, there were legal issues preventing extra visits. Adam and Helen controlled everything, and I felt completely powerless.
News of the case spread quickly. Rich teen kills classmate in school fight blared the local headlines. The evidence seemed irrefutable. 2 eyewitnesses identified Tommy as the attacker. There was forensic evidence at the scene, and the victim, Marcus Williams, had died from head trauma. "How could this happen?" I asked Adam during one of the few times I managed to talk to him about the case. "Dad, sometimes we don't really know people like we think we do," he replied, avoiding my gaze. "Tommy's always been impulsive. Maybe life on the farm, all that violence with animals triggered something in him." "Violence with animals? Tommy loves animals." Helen chimed in. "Bill, you may have a romanticized image of Tommy. Teenagers can be very different from how they appear. What matters now is protecting the family's reputation." Protecting the family's reputation. That phrase haunted me for days. While my grandson languished in a jail cell, they were worried about appearances. The trial was swift and devastating. The 2 witnesses, Kyle Morrison and Brett Hughes, both 17, gave detailed statements about seeing Tommy hit Marcus Williams with a rock until he died. The prosecutor painted a convincing picture of a privileged young man who lost control during an argument over a girl. Tommy was sentenced to 15 years in prison for manslaughter. Throughout the entire process, Adam and Helen kept me at a distance. "It's better this way, Dad," Adam would say. "Imagine the scandal if people see you supporting a murderer. The Austin community is already talking. You have businesses to protect." For 3 years, I lived in hell. The boy I loved like a son was in prison, convicted of a crime my heart refused to believe he had committed. I stopped going to church, avoided the neighbors, and isolated myself on the farm. The guilt consumed me. Where had I gone wrong? How had I missed the signs? In January 2024, at the age of 79, I received a diagnosis that changed everything. Advanced stage pancreatic cancer. The doctors were blunt. 6 months to live, at most. Strangely, the news of my imminent death brought a sense of peace. I wouldn't have to carry the pain of disappointment in Tommy much longer. I would soon be reunited with Diane. But fate had other plans. In February 2024, on a cold Tuesday morning, I heard a knock at the farmhouse door. When I opened it, I nearly collapsed. Tommy was standing there, taller, thinner, but alive and free. "Grandpa," he said, his voice breaking, "I need to tell you the truth." We hugged for what felt like forever, both of us in tears. He had been released after a successful appeal that proved his innocence. New evidence, recanted witness statements, inconsistencies in the original case. "I never killed anyone, Grandpa," Tommy said, as we sat on the porch where we had spent so many happy afternoons. In prison, Tommy had befriended Brett Wilson, a 50-year-old man serving time for fraud. Brett had connections in the underworld and a knack for spotting innocent inmates. "There was something about you," Brett had told Tommy. "I can always tell the real criminals from the unlucky ones." Brett used his contacts to unofficially investigate Tommy's case. What he discovered was shocking. The 2 main witnesses, Kyle Morrison and Victor Hughes, had been bribed.
Brett got a recording of Kyle talking, Tommy said, handing me a folder of documents. Kyle was remorseful, having constant nightmares. When Brett pressured him, he confessed everything. I opened the folder with trembling hands. There were bank statements showing $25,000 deposits into Kyle and Victor Hughes' accounts, each made a week before the trial. The money came from a joint account held by Adam and Helen Carter. But there was more, much more. Audio recordings of Helen coaching the boys on what to say in court. Text messages between Adam and Kyle discussing key details of the testimony. And the most damning piece, a recording of Adam admitting to Helen that Marcus Williams had died accidentally during a fight, but that they could use the tragedy to solve the Tommy problem once and for all. "They orchestrated everything, Grandpa," Tommy said, his tears in his eyes. "They were afraid you'd leave the farm to me. They'd rather ruin my life than risk losing the inheritance." My own son, my daughter-in-law. They had stolen 3 years of my grandson's life, made me believe he was a killer, isolated me from the person I loved most in the world, all out of pure greed. That night, alone in my room, I made a decision that would change everyone's fate.
I died on April 15, 2024, on a sunny spring morning. The cancer finally won, but I left this world in peace, knowing I had executed the perfect revenge. In the weeks before my death, I secretly worked with my trusted attorney, Robert Sullivan, a man of integrity who had represented me for over 20 years. Together, we drafted a new will, which I placed in a hidden drawer in my office, along with all the evidence Tommy had given me. Adam and Helen attended the funeral, dressed in black, playing the part of grieving family to perfection. They had no idea Tommy was back in town. I had asked him to stay hidden until the right moment. "Dad was a simple man, but an honest one," Adam said at the service. "He built a legacy our family will always honor." Helen wiped away fake tears and graciously accepted condolences with the poise of a respectable widow. In the following week, they acted like the new owners of the farm. Helen eagerly scheduled meetings with real estate agents to explore our options, while Adam spoke about modernizing operations and liquidating unnecessary assets. The reading of the will was scheduled for April 25th at Robert Sullivan's office in downtown Austin. Adam and Helen arrived promptly, confident and expectant. Also present were several farm employees, my accountant, and a few close neighbors. "Before we begin," Robert announced solemnly, "I'd like to inform you that we have a special guest today." The door opened, and Tommy entered the room. Adam went pale. Helen let out a startled gasp. "What is he doing here?" Adam asked nervously. "Thomas Carter is a beneficiary of this will. He has every right to be here." Adam and Helen exchanged anxious glances but didn't protest. Robert began reading the initial provisions. "To the farm employees, I left generous bonuses and job guarantees. To some neighbors, small mementos and thank yous for years of friendship." Then came the main part. "To my son Adam Carter and his wife Helen Rodriguez Carter, I leave the amount of $100 each and a personal letter." The room fell completely silent. Adam and Helen looked at each other, confused and increasingly alarmed. "There must be some mistake," Helen whispered. $100. Where's the rest?" Robert continued. "All remaining assets, including Carter Farms, all rural properties, investments, bank accounts, and other holdings with a total estimated value of $15.5 million, are to be left entirely to my grandson, Thomas Carter." The explosion was instant. "This is impossible," Adam shouted, leaping from his chair. "My father wouldn't do this. Tommy's a criminal, a murderer." "Actually," Robert said calmly, "there's more. He opened a sealed envelope and began reading the letter I had written to Adam and Helen. My dear Adam and Helen, you believed I was just a foolish old man from Texas, easy to deceive and manipulate. You thought I would die believing the lies you spread about Tommy. But I knew everything. I knew about the $50,000 you paid Kyle Morrison and Victor Hughes to lie in court. I knew about the text messages where you coordinated the false testimonies. I knew that you destroyed 3 years of a young man's life out of pure greed. You sacrificed my grandson's innocence, made me believe I had failed as a grandfather, and tore our family apart, all to ensure you would inherit my fortune. Well, now you shall reap what you sow. In addition to being disinherited, all the evidence of your crimes has already been delivered to the Texas District Attorney's Office. Prosecutor David Richardson received copies of the recordings, bank statements, text messages, and other proof confirming conspiracy, witness bribery, obstruction of justice, and perjury. Kyle Morrison has already confessed and agreed to a plea deal. Victor Hughes was arrested yesterday morning and has also decided to cooperate with the authorities. An arrest warrant has already been issued for both of you. Tommy, my true heir, will use part of the fortune you coveted so much to create a legal fund to help innocent young people who have been wrongfully convicted. Carter Farm will continue to thrive, run by someone who truly loves and understands its value. I hope that, in prison, you'll have time to reflect on how greed can destroy a family and ruin innocent lives. May God have mercy on your souls, because I did not. William Carter. Chaos erupted. Helen began screaming, accusing Robert of forging documents. Adam tried to argue that the will was invalid, that I hadn't been in my right mind when I wrote it. That's when 2 police officers entered the room. Adam Carter and Helen Rodriguez Carter, you are under arrest for conspiracy, witness bribery, obstruction of justice, and perjury. As the handcuffs clicked around Adam and Helen's wrists, Tommy stepped closer to me, or rather to where I would have been if I could still be there. Thank you, Grandpa. You did it. Justice was served.
6 months after the reading of the will, justice was complete. Adam was sentenced to 12 years in prison for conspiracy and obstruction of justice. Helen, considered the mastermind behind the scheme, received 15 years. Kyle Morrison, in exchange for his cooperation, got just 3 years with the possibility of parole. Victor Hughes, who had prior convictions, was sentenced to 8 years. The case gained national attention as an example of how greed can drive seemingly respectable people to commit heinous crimes against their own family. Tommy, now 20 years old, officially took over the management of Carter Farm. With guidance from our most experienced workers and help from specialized consultants, he turned the property into an even more prosperous and sustainable operation. Honoring the promise I made in my letter, Tommy founded the William Carter Legal Fund, a nonprofit organization that has already helped 17 wrongfully convicted young people receive proper legal representation. 3 of them have already been released after proof of their innocence was uncovered. The farm also became a research hub for sustainable agriculture in partnership with the University of Texas. Tommy implemented renewable energy systems, water conservation techniques, and organic farming methods that now serve as a model for other rural properties. In December 2024, Tommy married Diane Beth Williams, a veterinarian he met during one of the Legal Fund's charity events. Ironically, Diane Beth is a distant cousin of Marcus Williams, the young man who died in the schoolyard fight that began this whole tragedy. When she learned the real story, she became one of Tommy's strongest supporters. Marcus would be happy knowing that his death inadvertently led to something good, that it helped build a system to protect other innocent young lives, Diane Beth said during the wedding ceremony. The rural Texas community, which had initially judged Tommy harshly, now sees him as a symbol of redemption and perseverance. He has become a spokesperson for criminal justice reform and a guest speaker at universities on the dangers of bias and rushing to judgment. Robert Sullivan, my attorney, said in an interview, "Bill Carter may have died, but his final lesson lives on. He proved the truth always finds a way, even when it seems impossible." As for Adam and Helen, they remain behind bars, serving their sentences. Adam has lost all contact with Tommy, who refuses to visit or maintain any kind of relationship. Helen has made several attempts to reach out through letters, begging for forgiveness and claiming that things got out of hand, but her messages have gone unanswered. Carter Farm is now worth over $20 million, far more than I ever dreamed. But its true value isn't in the money. It lies in the love, the integrity, and the justice it now represents. From where I am now, I see Tommy every morning walking the same fields we used to play in when he was a child. I see him caring for the animals with the same tenderness he always showed, managing the property with wisdom and honor. My revenge was perfect, not because it destroyed my enemies, but because it protected the one who truly deserved protection. I proved that true love always triumphs over greed, that justice may take time, but always arrives, and that even in death we can keep fighting for what is right. William Carter is gone, but his farm, his values, and his legacy live on in the right hands. And that, to me, is the greatest victory of all.